When the police won't help you and the priests don't believe you, you call on Paul Prospero. You call on me. There are places that exist that very few people can see. To find Ethan, I had to figure out what this place was trying to hide from me.
What the hell's wrong with you exactly? You need to stop leaving your stupid stories around. They're freaking everyone out.
Ethan disturbed the sleeper. He must be punished.
Hello, and welcome to the Senior Detectives Podcast, a cozy corner to talk about mysteries of all kinds. I'm Hannah.
And I'm Lauren. Today we will be covering The Vanishing of Ethan Carter, a 2014 horror adventure video game. That's what the internet calls it, developed by the astronauts.
Horror adventure.
Yeah.
I would say I don't know if I would call it an adventure game.
Yeah, I don't know if I would call it a horror game. I mean, it's got elements of both of those things. But
It does.
Pretty
Yeah.
subdued, I would say, in both of those categories.
It is. Like, we're pretty big horror weenies.
Yeah.
And if we can play it,
You can
then
play it.
most people can play it.
I will say, I rewatched it for this episode, and there are moments where we are really, really, really big weenies.
We're not into it. Yeah. I mean, I get jump scared within the first minute or two of gameplay, if I remember correctly, by one of the traps.
Oh,
In
yes.
the first area, immediately.
I definitely,
One of them really.
when I was
gets
going
me.
through, I wrote down little timestamps of times when we get really scared because I think it's hilarious. And that one's a big one.
I don't know how explorative of a game this is. Oh my god.
Oh.
Okay. Right away. All right.
Oh, no.
Okay. It does I feel like an environmental horror is the type of horror. Less jump scares. There's jump scares in the first area, but it's just traps that are out in the woods.
Right.
After that, it's mostly environmental, you're in scary places
Yeah.
with maybe a scary thing around, but it's
The vibes are off. Yeah. It's also one of those where you never meet another person.
mhm.
I mean, you go back into memories and scenes and things, but they're not in reality with you,
You're alone,
which I think makes it worse for us for some
gets
reason.
us every time too. There's a game called the Paynes Creek Killings, which we have played and we've covered on the podcast as well. And it's very much the same concept of you exploring a town that's been abandoned all by yourself the whole time, and just being by yourself is at least 50% of the horror
It's terrible.
in that game. It's
Yeah.
get eerie. Yeah.
Especially because you're coming up on scenes of horror.
hmm
The biggest part of this game is solving deaths of this one family, the Carter family. And so you come across their bodies and it's unpleasant.
It is, yeah. Pretty grisly horror or murder scenes.
Yeah.
For some of them. Some of them are a little more your average murder, but some of them are
Yeah.
grim.
Yeah. It's not a very long game. I think
No.
we played it in 2 sessions, maybe 4
Mm.
hours. And it's really pretty for 2014.
It looks great and it holds
Yeah.
up really well. Yeah. It's really good storytelling, I think. It's one of those smaller indie games that there's horror elements and mystery elements and puzzle solving and stuff like that, but it's mainly telling a story. That's
Yeah.
what the whole it's very heavy on the storytelling. And
Yeah.
it tells a story that I'm not entirely sure
We didn't
I understand the whole thing.
We
Which
don't
we'll
really
get
get
to.
it.
I get 90%. It's
Yeah.
that last 10% that I'm like, maybe I don't understand.
Watching it back, I think I understood definitely more than I did when we played it through the first time. But it's not a story that wraps up in a nice little bow. However, I think, because usually that bothers me, but it's done in such a way where it's okay.
I would agree. I think it's closed enough.
Yeah.
Of an ending where you don't feel disappointed or like left without any satisfaction, but it is a little bit ambiguous, not necessarily open-ended. I think it's just an ambiguous ending. It's left open to your interpretation, which is, I think, why I enjoyed it more.
Right, which is kind of fun. I feel like we both had theories. And then we went to the internet for theories. Because
I needed my small brain needed help with putting together the...
Somebody else already thought this through.
Exactly. We open up by coming out of a train tunnel into some woods.
Like through like this like portal. Like you're just walking down this train tunnel, and then it's like if you played BioShock Infinite, it's like the tears that she makes. Like it's just a rip in the space-time continuum. And you walk through it.
That we just stepped out of. Yeah. So there's not any explanation necessarily for that for a while. Yeah, so our character's talking to himself, essentially, saying, Ethan Carter, I didn't know, but he knew who I was because I'm famous detective Paul Prospero.
Yeah.
Which is a great detective name, I gotta say.
I agree. It's not explicitly stated what he is. The internet calls him a paranormal investigator, but you don't know that. Like, all he says is that when the police and priests won't help you, you call on me. And we had theories about this man the whole time. I was like, this is Ethan. This is the dad. This is...
We wanted him to be something, really bad. But I don't think he's anything.
Not really.
Or any of those things. Yeah, he's been receiving letters from Ethan asking for help. And he decided to take Ethan's case and has... at this point is coming to just try and figure out what happened because he doesn't really know. It was like an open-ended correspondence from Ethan. So
So he goes to a place called Red Creek Valley, which is totally abandoned. But the first area, so we're going to be talking about it based on our playthrough because it's technically an open world. It's a very small world. And to be honest, it's still kind of linear.
It's linear in the sense that the map is quite like long and skinny and like you have to go past things in order to get to stuff at the end, or you can just do things as you come across them. Right. So it's open world in that sense.
So we're basically going to talk about it as though we're doing it as we come across it. There were a couple puzzles that we did not understand and we had to jump past and then come back to. But we're just going to talk about it like we figured it out right then.
As if we figured it out the first time we tried to.
Yeah. So the first area is you're in a forest. And this is where we were talking about you find a bunch of traps in the forest. And it's basically like your tutorial of how the game works. But it is really weird.
It doesn't seem to fit to me with the rest of the game. I feel like there was probably a better way to do some sort of tutorial.
I agree.
Or just have you go through a really easy murder scene, like solve a really straightforward one first. And that would be your tutorial in that sense. But like in this area, you just have to find all of the traps. And each time you find a trap, they're pretty hidden. It took us a while. And each time you find one, it like opens up more and more of a tear. Yeah, I just feel like it would have been easier for me to like get a grip on the mechanics of the rest of the game.
Right.
If we were solving a murder rather than just finding traps.
Because the first murder you come across after this was the one that we skipped because we had no idea what was going on.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And we also had to come back to the traps. But if you did get all of them right away, a full image appears, like the tear is fully set, and you walk through it and it transports you to where that scene is. And This first one, you're in a sea of skeletons. Like the forest floor is just covered with skeletons. And there you find a paper at the base of a tree. And it's got a story on it that was written by Ethan.
The first of many that we
Yeah.
will find of stories written by Ethan.
And they're weird.
They're super trippy and weird.
Like, weird.
Yeah, this first one you find is about an old man who was drinking tree sap and was apparently the only one in his village that survived a fire. And, you read through this story and then you hear audio of Ethan talking to his grandfather and telling him that he wrote this story for his grandfather.
Yeah, so you usually hear audio of like him writing that story, trying to talk to some family member, and they're all like, yeah, okay. Like,
Sure.
or they're like, your stories are fucking weird. Stop.
He doesn't. It's the first glimpse we have of Ethan's not so stellar family.
Yeah.
Not supportive, very toxic. They are just not gentle parenting.
No.
This poor boy.
And so after that scene, because it like fades to black, you hear that audio, and then it fades back to like in reality where you actually are. And you're around this campfire, and in it you find a burned newspaper clipping that tells us that Ethan's grandmother died in a house fire. And his grandfather is in the article claiming that it was an accident, like he didn't mean to do it, but it was his fault. So,
Whoops. Yeah.
Yikes.
Which, at first you want to like be mad at his grandfather for blowing Ethan off, but also
Right.
like if your grandfather lived through something like that, maybe don't write a story about a fire that only one person survived. Like, I don't know. It just seems very
Yeah.
triggering. If
Yeah.
your wife died in a fire, I would also probably be like, that's nice, but I'm not going to read that.
Please don't do this to me. How old do we think Ethan is?
I would say he's in the like 13, 14, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe younger, maybe 12, but like I don't think much younger than that. He's
Yeah.
definitely a teenager.
And he should
but
know
on
better.
the younger side. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know how long he's been writing these stories.
Sure.
He could have been writing them when he was, younger, and these are just older ones. But
Yeah.
yeah, he should know better if he knows that about his grandfather.
Yeah.
After that, we kind of leave the forest area and you're following the train tracks throughout this whole area, basically. And then it leads you across a big, scary wooden
It's terrible.
bridge.
Then it looks
That's
like it's falling apart.
It's, like on the verge of just collapsing.
Yeah.
I was fully expecting something to break while we were, it never breaks. It's
No,
not that
it's not
kind
that
of game.
kind of game. Yeah. But we didn't know what kind of game it was yet.
Right. So this is your first official murder scene that you're solving. And you just find a pair of legs on the train tracks.
Yeah.
And
And there's like a blood trail, like smeared blood that goes down this hill almost to a shoreline. It's like a cliffside to the shore. And there's the top half of the body. Oh. Yeah.
it's when I said there's some more grisly murders, this is one of them.
Yeah.
It's the sort of game where as you're looking around, words will appear
Mm-hmm.
on the screen, and you can kind of sometimes, like if you line the words up to where they overlap perfectly, or there's different sort of things you do to get more information out of the scene, but you follow what the words on the screen tell you to do, basically. And
Yeah. It was neat, but also very confusing at first.
right, we got used to it after
We
this
did.
first one. I feel like we understood the mechanics much more.
Yeah.
But it was like we said earlier with the traps, like I feel like if this was a simpler to solve murder
Yeah.
and was the first thing you did, it would be a lot more appropriate of a tutorial for
Yeah.
the game than the traps were.
Yeah. So once you have enough clues and you've pieced them together, it does like an Obra Dinn thing. It feels very Obra Dinn, like the mist leads you to different places. And you have to look at several scenes of this murder and then you have to order them chronologically to tell the story of what happened, which was pretty cool.
I really like this element of the game. You get little maybe 5 to 10 second snippets of the entire murder scene. And yeah, you have to put them in order. And I mean, they're not always super obvious right away.
No,
some of
right.
them, I feel like we had to try a couple different orders, which was a nice little puzzle solving element. You get the full scene at the end so you can figure out what happened. And this murder was Ethan Carter's older brother, Travis, had tied him down onto the train tracks in an attempt to murder him.
Sure. Yep. Totally normal thing to do.
Sure. Ethan's saying, like, no, don't do this. I know how to destroy it. The way he's saying it's like, it's some sort of entity.
Yeah. Some sort
that
of
we don't understand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Travis' response is like, no. It's time. You can't destroy time, which is also very confusing.
Yeah. It's one of those sort of storytelling games where you get little drips and drops and you have to kind of put all the pieces together yourself to figure out what was going on and what you think was happening. But there's clearly some entity or something that they fear and that Travis is trying to appease by killing Ethan.
Yeah.
And so just as he's about to kill Ethan, their grandfather, Ed, comes and hits Travis on the head, saving Ethan, and proceeds to brutally murder Travis.
I know, runs him over with the train. So they were his legs on the train tracks.
Which is one solution, I guess.
Yeah. And then Ed drags his body away, or maybe Travis crawls away. Either way, he goes down the cliff and then finishes him off with the train crank. Freaking bashes his head in until he's dead.
Right. So Travis supposedly survived having his legs cut off by the train.
For a little bit, anyway, yeah.
At least for a short amount of time. And then, he gets put out of his misery with blunt force trauma. But Ed, as he's doing this and Ethan's there, he's telling Ethan, they call this thing the sleeper. And he says, the sleeper
a terrible name.
Is in me
that
too.
It's creepy.
Right. Yeah, terrible in that, it's ominous.
Yeah.
Spooky. But he says, it's in me too, and you need to get away. And so Ethan runs away from Ed, his grandfather.
It sets it up very nicely. I think it was smart of them to choose the brother first, because it's like, oh, okay, his brother, something happened to him. He went crazy. He's trying to kill his other brother. And then his grandpa saves his life, right? And so you're like, okay, there are people looking out for him. There are adults in his life that are looking out for him.
And then that adult says, I'm not safe either, but you should get out of here while you have time, which is so scary. Poor Ethan. I'd want to mention that the environment of this game, and especially the geological landscape, I the whole time couldn't get a real grasp on where we are.
Yeah.
I saw online, apparently it's in Wisconsin, which I don't have a lot of experience with the geography of Wisconsin.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know.
But it seems really mountainous.
It is.
For that.
Yeah. We had all kinds of guesses.
Right. It feels like you're in kind of the mining district sort of area of Pennsylvania, as well as you at one point cross a big river, which feels very European, and some of the architecture seems very European. It's kind of a weird blend, which to me lent itself to the mystery of not really feeling quite right for anywhere specifically.
Yeah.
But supposedly
it's in Wisconsin. Okay. All right. If that's the canon, that's fine. But yeah, it's really pretty. It's a very pretty landscape scene.
Yeah.
By the way, if you hear my dog growling in the background at all, there's people working on my neighbor's house and she can see them out of the window. So she's not happy about it.
She's protecting you.
Yeah. Anyway, so the next area that you go into is also forested, and occasionally there's puzzles sprinkled throughout the game. And so we do a light puzzle for this one, and it leads to a tag game with an astronaut.
And I was already questioning what was happening.
Yeah.
But then,
And then you're like, what the heck?
this is the part that I still have I can't insert this. I can't make this make sense. Like, I think I'm assuming it's just Ethan's imagination and that we are supposed to pull that. But like, beyond that, I have no theories.
It's like
about
when
this
we
part.
went into the portal with the skeletons on the ground. I think it's that it has to do with his like story. So you catch the astronaut and then you get sucked up into a space pod and shot into space. So
the whole time it was happening, I was so confused.
yeah.
Though.
It's like, what game are we playing?
What is this? Yes. But you find another one of Ethan's stories there. He is writing about a beast.
Mm-hmm.
And you hear some audio, him talking to his brother, and they're arguing.
Yeah. And when you fade back out this time, you're just in this like little makeshift treehouse, which I guess, maybe he played in it one day and as a spaceship or something.
Right. Yeah. It was like his spaceship or something.
Yeah.
I think it's the concept, but it threw me for a loop.
Yeah.
When
Right.
we first played it. We then progress across a big giant river gorge.
Yeah.
Another bridge. This one's a lot more sturdy.
It's quite nice, actually.
It's very nice. And on the other side is like a nice little town, or what was once a nice little town. It's
abandoned,
like deteriorating.
Yeah.
And quite creepy.
I think
honestly.
It was the town that really made us think Europe because of the architecture.
It seems like you're in like Austria in the summer or something, is what the like climate and architecture seems like. It seems very alpine, and I couldn't figure out where we were meant to be, because we were definitely supposed to be in America. Like the whole cast is American,
right?
Everything else is very American feeling, but this area for sure felt very European.
Yeah, and so we enter a house. It's the very first one we enter, and we find a letter. It's long, but like the gist of it is, I invoke the boneless one. Use the doors of confusion to cloud their judgment. And so then portals appear on every doorway in the house. And we were stuck on this puzzle.
So long.
Wow.
Our stubborn nature of finding a puzzle and refusing to move on until we solve it really did us dirty here, because you find the solution elsewhere.
In another house.
Basically, you have to use another one of the houses in the area, the layout of that house, to navigate the house with all the portals. So you have to walk away from this puzzle in order to solve it. And we did not do that for a long time. So I think someone had to tell us.
I think so too. Like, hey, you can
just
go.
Come back to this one.
Yeah. There's a really nice person because we stream these video games. There was a really nice person in chat that was like, hey guys, it's okay.
Okay.
Oh, wait.
Yo,
Lauren.
this is the house. This is the house. Okay, I get it now.
It's scary in here though.
The music really did be changing. I did not know. Oh, this game is making my eyes water. Okay.
I mean, the way the letter is written, it makes you think like, oh, we can solve this here based on what is in this letter.
Right.
No.
Yeah. No, you can't.
No.
I mean, maybe through blind luck you could, but I don't think so. It would be very difficult, especially maybe if you had gone to their other house first and walked around and gotten really familiar with the other house, which is just chance, like which house you go into first.
Right.
You maybe could have solved this puzzle upon seeing
it
it for the first time.
Yeah.
But not us.
Nope.
Not us.
Nope. Probably it really slowed down our game time. This game is probably much shorter than we made it.
I'm sure it is. Yeah.
So once you've like figured that out, when you go into one of the rooms, you get a different audio clip from Ethan's family. And it's It's between Ethan's family accusing Ethan of waking up the sleeper in a secret old room of the Vandergriff house, and then Ethan being like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to, and stuff like that.
Right. And so Paul Prospero, our character, sort of deduces that Ethan's family, which we've talked on this a little bit, is they were trying to appease this creature, this entity, the sleeper, by violence and suffering, basically.
Against Ethan specifically.
Right. They thought it would appease it, and like it seems to be causing them severe mental distress as well. It's not just like, oh, like this entity wants us to do this, I'm just going to do what it says. But it seems like it causes them really severe mental anguish until they comply.
Yeah.
Is what it seems like. Which is also very scary. Like, I hate that. That sounds awful.
It's terrible. Yeah, I mean, his entire family, like even his parents, guys, they all are like, yes, the best way to handle this is to off my own son. So
it's a pretty clear metaphor to me, at least, for severe depression, where you're not really seeing things clearly anymore. You're not like rationalizing things and reasoning clearly anymore because your depression is telling you straight up lies, which is, I mean, it's horrible, but it's very real.
I like that interpretation. Yeah. So back in the first house, we found another story. So after we've solved those puzzles, we also get a story. And this time the audio is of his uncle Chad, who sucks, by the way, telling Ethan to stop leaving the stories around because they're scaring everybody.
Which is that is valid. Uncle Chad does suck, but also your stories are deeply disturbing to us. So
please stop it.
Please stop. So next we find possibly my favorite or my least favorite area in the game, where we immediately walked up and went, oh
no. So it's a graveyard right next to a church, and you do have to go into the church for a little bit, and we were like, no.
This church was also architecturally very confusing because it looks very like Nordic to me.
Yeah.
Like very Scandinavian looking church.
Yeah, the graveyard as well.
Yeah. And it's very, very dark in this church. And I was just gonna be like, well, I'm not going in there until it tells me I have to go in there. So we explored everywhere else and we're, solving the murder scene in this area by getting clues and, opening up the memory tear more and more until eventually it does force you to go in the church.
And we were weenies about it. We just were.
It was so dark.
It was terrible.
It was so dark in there. I hated it.
There's a part.
But we got through it.
I hope we clip it out because it like led us somewhere else. And you're like, oh no, we have to leave the church now. It was so funny.
Oh no, darn. I don't want to do that. Oh no, we can't go upstairs.
Oh no, we have to exit the building.
You also have to go in this scene. The murder you're solving, the scene you're solving is that two of Ethan's family members were trying to literally brick him in to a crypt. Like mortar bricks. Walling him into a crypt, to just presumably suffer and die in there.
Yeah. Probably starve because, it was Uncle Chad with the support of his own mother. Her name is Missy. So yay for Missy. But the scene that we reconstruct is that his father, Dale, was trying to reason with them, being like, guys,
maybe not.
Maybe don't. Maybe we don't kill Ethan. And while they're talking, Ethan comes up and stabs Uncle Chad in the eye and escapes.
He had it coming.
Yeah.
He had it coming. yeah, so Chad survives that, but he blames Dale and attempts to strangle Dale. But then Missy, like, it's weird that they'll protect each other,
Right. But not
Ethan.
Right. Until
Well, like Dale protected Ethan
Right.
here, but it's weird because like Missy was clearly okay with like walling her son into a crypt, but when Chad was trying to strangle and kill Dale, Ethan's father, she murders Chad. She protected Dale. She protected her husband, and so it's very directed at Ethan.
Yeah,
all of this anger and it's strange.
It is. It's weird. And then later, you'll solve the murder, and then the little Oberdin mist will take you to like epilogue scene, kind of. And this one was Ethan finding his dad again and asking him for a key to the mines, which obviously, as a game player, you're like, okay, we have to go to the mines.
We're going to go to the mines.
And he asked his dad, you got to keep mom away from me. Like, you guys are all sick. Clearly, I mean, yeah.
Yeah. So we make our way to the mines. The mine passageways are really labyrinthian. They're really confusing. And we got through there and we find a woman trapped in an elevator.
Yeah.
But below water. So it's like one of those kind of steel cage elevators. And then she got like lowered into water. So she was drowned.
This is the worst to me, I think, this death.
Really?
I don't know. There's something about being trapped in a cage and drowning.
Yeah. It's
pretty bad.
Pretty awful.
It's pretty awful.
Yeah. So it's his mother. It's Ethan's mother. Missy and Dale tracked Ethan to the mines, and she was tracking him to kill him so that the sleeper can awaken, which don't like that.
Which and they're all
Why
like, you woke the sleeper up. Bad Ethan. But now she's saying, no, we need to awaken it by killing Ethan. So it's all very confusing.
Right. But I don't think any of them know specifically what the sleeper is. You know what I mean? It's all very dreamlike. All of the stuff about the sleeper, and there is just like quality to the whole game, which I think makes sense later on. That is very like not reality quite.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Well, yeah. But I mean like before crazy shit starts happening, there's just something not quite right about all of it.
Yeah.
She wants to awaken the sleeper now. So that's fun. And Dale is begging her to reconsider.
Yeah. But she doesn't. So he's like, okay, here I go. He traps her in the elevator. He breaks the mechanism for her to escape. And then he drowns her.
Kind of in the post scene for this one, you see him helping Ethan escape with containers of gasoline.
Yeah. What are they going to do with that? Yeah.
I don't know. We've already had a fire situation.
Right.
So we go back out into the main village and we discover the body of Dale. And we solve this whole series of puzzles. And we come to find out that Dale tried to kill Travis with an axe as Travis was exiting the mine.
Right. Because Dale's like hanging on at this point. Good for Dale.
Yeah, he's like semi with it here, but just barely. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So they kind of have like a physical fight with this axe, and Travis actually manages to get it away from Dale and accuses him of standing in the sleeper's way, threatened him into telling him that Ethan is planning on burning down the Vandergriff room. So
right. That's Ethan's plan.
Yeah. And the Vandergriff house, which we mentioned, it's like this big mansion that's on their property that they all kind of talk about. And there seems to be some contention about this property. I feel like they mention it more and more and more and more.
They do.
As the story goes on.
Yeah, you don't really understand what it is at first. Then Travis chases Dale into the house where we found him. Dale decides to remedy this situation by taking his own life with a pair of scissors.
He's basically, because he's still semi-lucid here. He's not fully, committed to the whole sleeper. Hasn't been fully taken over yet. And he's trying to basically opt out.
Yeah.
Like he's trying to
him.
Obstruct. Yeah.
I like Dale.
Yeah. He's kind of the only redeemable one.
Yeah. Right.
Honestly. maybe the grandpa.
Yeah.
It's like he's trying to obstruct the sleeper's plan.
Yeah.
But it turns out that the sleeper feeds and like works off of any type of suffering. And
Yeah.
so his suicide ended up contributing to it anyway.
Right.
Which is that's a real bummer.
It is a real bummer. Yeah, he was trying to do the one thing he could think of to not aid in it. And
It didn't matter. But
just fed it like everything else. Yeah. So Travis like literally watched his father kill himself and goes, "You're a coward for not just helping." And then he tracks Ethan to a water-powered plant, which is kind of crazy that he even allowed Ethan to like talk at all. Like he doesn't just immediately go in for the kill, which is weird because Ethan's like, "I know how to stop it. You have to help me." And that's like the end of the scene. That's all you get.
right. So Paul Prospero at this point supposes that the sleeper was feeding off of their hate and distrust of each other, and that even the suicide ended up feeding it, despite Dale not wanting to be involved. Paul's kind of putting together all the same stuff that we are as a player.
We kept like, because Paul does not talk to you very often throughout the game.
No.
And so like we would just be walking along and then all of a sudden he would start speaking and we'd like, it's a little bit of a jump scare.
Seems to come out of nowhere sometimes, yeah, which just goes to show how much of weenies we are when just your character is just speaking out loud to themselves and it scares you.
Yeah.
It's bad.
Yeah.
We're not built for it.
I know, but we keep coming back to it.
I know. So back across the dam of the water power plant that Travis like tracked Ethan to, we do find the remains of this Vandergriff house that they keep referring to, which was almost completely burned down.
Yeah. You go into this like underground tunnel in the house, like among the remains. And there are, I don't even know how to describe this.
It's wild. And I also, this part we'll talk about at the end. But yeah, as you're exploring this underground area of this home, there are bodies in the walls. Like decayed, desiccated bodies in the walls.
They're like, they each have like a frame around them. And it's like they're coming out of their frame.
It's really striking.
Yeah.
As a visual and very creepy.
Yeah, it's terrible.
And you have to get through all of that horribleness. You find a note that reveals that Ed, the grandfather, had attempted to brick his own wife into the wall, like these bodies.
Yeah.
But failed.
Yeah.
But then apparently succeeded later accidentally. I'm like, is it an accident if she died in a fire? If you've tried to brick her into a wall previously? Like, I'm skeptical.
Yeah.
Didn't mean to kill her in a fire.
Yeah. The theories were running rampant at this point, I think.
Yeah.
Because we were like, okay, maybe she was also sick with the sleeper, so he was trying to kill her to like save everybody else, or he's infected with the sleeper. Who can say? But Ed's charred body is like sitting in a little ball on the floor. So he has met his demise.
Is dead. And also died of fire. Which is just keeps coming back.
This scene is wild.
It is. So Ed came to Ethan in this room with extra gasoline and claimed that his grandmother is helping him fight off the sleeper and that he wants to help.
Right. Because previously, if you remember, he's like, "I'm sick too, you better run." But now he comes to him and is like, I've like got it under control. We got this.
Yeah, it's like he's fighting this inner demon, and sometimes he's the one acting and sometimes it's the sleeper that's acting. And supposedly right now it's Ed.
Right. And Ethan goes, "Hey, look, Gramps. Look, if you just turn this table like just in the right way, the panels on the wall," because we're in a flashback, right? So those panels weren't open yet. They open up to reveal the petrified bodies.
I can't wait to talk about this in full because I don't necessarily understand.
I don't either.
Okay. Ethan says the sleeper is not fully awake yet, but feeds off of suffering, which we know. which is why Vandergriff kept his victims alive as long as he could. So I don't know if I'm assuming, if I have this right, is that this house was owned by a man who was under the control of the sleeper to a certain extent and was essentially like a serial killer.
Yeah.
Just trying to continually appease the sleeper.
I think. Yes. Maybe.
But I guess to like extend like maximum amount of suffering, he bricked them into the walls.
Right.
And that's why all these bodies are here. So, but the sleeper really likes that move.
Yeah,
apparently.
breaking people in.
Because I don't feel like my natural state, if I get overtaken by the sleeper, I don't feel like that's the first thing I'm gonna think of. But Grandpa did. So.
Grandpa thought of it. So did Vandergriff. So did Uncle Chad.
They were trying to brick him into the crypt. Yeah. So I don't know. It likes that move.
It does.
Maximum suffering, apparently.
Yeah. So Ed helps Ethan open the Vandergriff room door that everyone was referring to, where he woke the sleeper, but he traps him inside. And then he walks over to one of the bodies. He starts talking to it as though it's his wife. And he says, "It has to be this way. The sleeper must not wake up. Everyone has to die because they all have it inside of them."
Love.
So so his wife ended up in the wall anyway.
Presumably. She doesn't really make an appearance in the game, does she?
No, because she's dead.
She died in a fire.
Yeah.
But because she was bricked into a wall?
I think Grandpa is just crazy. I don't really know.
I don't think he's speaking 100% truths here. Yeah.
Yeah.
The scene ends with Ethan draining gas on the floor beneath the door, and then he lights it, and Ed basically just sits down in the fire to die, like willingly.
Wild. Totally wild to me.
Yeah.
That your body does not have a reaction to being burned alive, but he's just like unfazed. Like, yep, this is my time. Let me just sit down.
It is pretty insane. The mind over matter of people who burn alive voluntarily is pretty crazy biology, I feel like.
Yeah.
Ethan, still in like a small little secret hidden room off of the room. There's the room with all the bodies, big table in the middle that Grandpa just died in. And then there's like a secret hidden room that Ethan has trapped himself in and is locked inside of. And we, as Paul Prospero, enter this room and find Ethan there, and we wake him up.
Yeah, which a
at
deviation.
This point I was like, this isn't what I thought was happening.
No, because that's not what's happened in any of the other scenes, Right. Now all of a sudden we're like, we as a character are in this vision with him and can interact with him. Yeah. And so Ethan's like all excited. He's like, "Paul Prospero, oh my gosh, like I'm so excited to meet you." But then he just tells us, "You're too late." And that's the end of that scene. And it's scary and sad.
It is. So we kind of come to, in a sense, and we're still in that room, but Ethan's gone. Like there's, but there's a map on the wall of the whole area that we've been exploring the whole time. And it kind of lets us know that there's 2 more areas that we have unfinished business in that we need to go solve.
It's like it's drawn with chalk, like a child's drawing drawn with chalk.
Mm-hmm.
So presumably Ethan drew it.
I think it's
strange
safe to assume.
Yeah.
Right.
So these areas aren't like, well, at least the first one is it's kind of like the astronaut thing where it's like a little like one-off for one of his stories.
We find a TP out in the woods with another overly creepy story written by Reed.
Yep.
And in the dialogue afterwards, Missy, his mother, is chastising him about not necessarily like living in reality, which I don't know at this point if the sleeper had overtaken her brain, but if you have a child that constantly dissociates and doesn't live in reality, I think that maybe you need to look inwardly.
Sure, but a parent that doesn't, that kind of parent's not gonna care or put it
she's not
together
gonna-
or, yeah.
Yeah.
I agree though, especially because not only is he not living in reality, but he's writing all of these stories and then begging for them to give him attention over them. And they
Mhm.
all are just like, nah.
And we do find a note from her here, which is her apologizing and asking for his forgiveness for yelling at him. Which
Through a
is
note.
a step in the right direction, sure.
But it's weird. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the last area takes us back to the mines. And it's this super complex like thing that you have to do. We thought it was like end game, but it was all just for another story, which I think is wild.
Yeah, you're running through the maze of mines basically. And if you come to this area earlier in the game, because everywhere is accessible to you, if you come here earlier, you can like die. Basically, the zombies can get you,
There's a
which is
zombie
super
that
scary.
will murder you.
Scary. Well, I did not like this part at all.
Yeah.
As the one playing, did not enjoy it. But if you come here now, at this point in the game, you're actually supposed to seek out the zombies, find them all, and like gather them basically.
Yeah.
And once you do, their spirit goes up to like this big like altar
Pedestal
thing.
Yeah.
In a cavern. It's very Lovecraftian. It's very like Cthulhu-esque looking imagery. And this part, once again, I'm like, I think it's just meant to be one of Ethan's stories.
I don't know that I ever thought that. I was like, what is happening? We are going to summon the sleeper. Like we are part of the ritual
in the moment,
now.
I 100% thought all of that. Yeah. But trying to make sense of it later, I'm just like, I guess it's just supposed to be
just
one of his stories.
Yeah. So you solve this puzzle. It's got like symbols, poems. There's like this giant stone gate thing that you open. And then once you open
big giant stone gates, y'all.
Don't do it.
Like, don't do it.
It felt very much like Call of the Sea to me, this part.
Yes, which is also very, very Lovecraftian.
Yes, it is. Yeah. Great game. We did a podcast episode on it. Go play it.
That one is so good.
So once you open this gate, like an onslaught of water comes rushing out of it. And then all of a sudden we are underwater in the forest. And there's a giant like sea monster with large tentacles around us.
It's trippy as shit.
It is.
And I did not know what's happening.
Nope, it's not what I expected. It was very confusing.
And we really thought that this was like endgame. We're solving the whole story here. We're getting the final answers. And it just, if anything, confused me even more. But
for sure. Yeah.
It's definitely, I think, just another story of Ethan.
Yeah, we find it. We find his story in this area. And this one is about a miner that is doomed to prevent others from summoning the sea thing for all eternity. So, like, there's parallels between the sleeper and this sea thing that Ethan had written about.
We get some dialogue here between Dale and Ethan, of Dale telling him that he'll read his story later. He's not supposed to be in here and not to tell your mother where they are because they're in like a really quite dangerous area of the mines. And yeah, it's once again just Ethan being brushed off by members of his family, even the most well-meaning member of his family.
Right. Yeah. So when you come back to reality in the mines, there is kind of another story that you find, and it is alongside a document that states that Dale had applied for a patent, but it has been denied. And then with that, there's a note from Missy telling Dale to get his quote unquote shit out of the basement as it reminds her of his quote unquote lifetime of disappointment.
She's great.
So their marriage is just really doing well.
It's like some of the characters, like Travis gets a moment with Ethan where he kind of tries to, help him and like seems like an okay person, and Dale gets a moment like that. Ed gets a moment like that. Uncle Chad and Missy,
They're the
terrible
worst.
people.
They suck.
Like irredeemable in the context of this game.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's horrible. So we make our way back to the Vandergriff home, the burned house with the map drawing, and we get transported into a scene.
Now this is Endgame.
So
Yeah.
it's a big family scene memory that we're watching where Travis is like berating Ethan for missing dinner, and he calls the rest of the family that he found him, and Ethan joins them in the room with the bodies in the walls.
Except they're not bodies in this scene. They're just like sketches of bodies, meaning Ethan like thought this up in his head and sketched bodies coming out of the walls onto the wall of this abandoned home.
Right. So I think we're meant to think Ethan was not ever affected by the sleeper, but I kind of feel like maybe a little bit. I don't know if his like imagination was protecting him to some degree.
I think Ethan is the sleeper.
I think he is. I do agree. But as far as like him just dreaming up bodies coming out, it just seems so sinister that I feel like there had to be some sort of influence there. Maybe he read some horrible
something because
story
he has
or something.
No parental guidance.
Maybe so.
Yeah.
But they continue to kind of have like a big tiff in this room, and Missy's like scolding Ethan. Travis he recites the title of Ethan's most recent story, which is The Adventures of Paul Prospero. So we are also made up by Ethan.
Yep. So this scene was like kind of cool. I was like, oh, wait.
Yeah, right. It's just a lot all at once. So you're trying to like iron out all the storylines in your head all at the same time.
Yeah.
Right. And parse your theories.
And then friggin' shit goes south because Uncle Chad calls Ethan the F slur, and like Travis is laughing at it. And Missy, she's holding this like flame lantern in her hand. Once he says that, she like spins around to be like, stop it. Are you kidding me? But she accidentally hits her lamp on the desk and it smashes and the house goes up in flames.
It seems like everybody else in the family's instinct is to go upstairs and exit the house normally. But Ethan, who has basically that secret room down there in the basement area, is like his little secret haven and his place where he feels safe. So he runs in there.
Yeah.
And gets trapped in there and passes out from smoke fumes. Exactly in the spot and position and everything that Paul found him in earlier in the game.
Yeah. So, I mean, he dies in there and you can like see the family has all made it out. They're like, I mean, his parents are like freaking out that he's in there.
Oh, they're trying to save him and put out the fire. And I mean, it's not like they're like, oh, shame.
Right.
But like, it's just a giant fire.
There is a final dialogue between our character, Paul, and Ethan. It's very sentimental. It's very heartwarming. We tell Ethan that our story was a fine one, but that it's done now. And Ethan says, you mean I can let it go? What happens then? And we respond, another story, kid. What else?
Which is very sweet.
Really sweet.
Yeah. So as far as things like we know for sure in regards to this ending.
Yes.
Ethan died in the fire.
Yes.
Him passing out from the smoke fumes is him being the sleeper, and why waking up the sleeper was such a big thing that they kept trying to do.
Right.
And
maybe his family is being haunted by him because they're kind of responsible for his death.
That could 100% be true.
Maybe.
Yeah. It could be that like throughout the game, all the murder scenes that we've solved where they were trying to do something to Ethan was them trying to do something to like their memory of Ethan. Like Ethan wasn't actually there. and then they all just ended up murdering each other.
Right.
None of that could have ever happened potentially. Like
I don't- Yeah.
There's different
I
ways
don't
you
think
can
it happened. Because, I mean, we're Paul. We are a figment of Ethan's imagination. So maybe it's like Ethan explaining to himself why his family sucks.
I think that's what they were going for, at least. I think that's what the developers were going for, is Ethan is the sleeper, and all of the fantastical stories, including the murders that we solved and his family being in general just awful,
Yeah.
was all just him like finding ways to cope with his own kind of horrible circumstances.
I mean, that kid was the next Stephen King. Man, he had a really weird mind. Uh,
yeah. Ethan's brain could have probably come up with some pretty crazy horror mystery stories.
yeah.
For
yeah.
sure.
Do we think that the Vandergrift house is actually the house that his grandmother died in?
Yeah. So,
And that's why he was
I-
like up in it all the time. Like that was like a property that no one would go to except for Ethan.
I don't know, because it's like, was it already slightly burned from the
Right.
fire she died in? And then he just kind of found like an empty, dilapidated house and made it like his clubhouse, essentially, knowing or not knowing that his grandmother died there. You know, like kids just do that.
Right.
It could be. And then like maybe it caught fire again. But I think
Right.
like when it caught fire and he died, at least in like the finished basement area, that area hadn't been burned. So like I think that house was intact.
True. You're right.
I don't necessarily think that's where his grandmother died. But you don't get any explanation of like
You
where she
don't.
died or
Yeah.
when that happened, if
why
he was
he
even
thought
alive yet, or
There was a serial killer living there.
who put bodies
the
in the
bodies
walls.
in the walls.
Which is what kind of leads me to believe that Ethan was maybe dealing with some mental health issues on top of like just being a child who was in really horrible circumstances, but like
Yeah, I think so.
just was coming up with some really like dark stuff.
Yeah.
We've played a lot of indie mystery games that are heavy on the storytelling like this, and most of them are really sad. Like most of them,
I know, right?
hit you real hard with the this is horrible and so sad. And this one is, but like didn't hit me in the sads
Sure.
as much as some of the like What Remains of Edith Finch
Ugh,
is like
so sad.
really
like gut wrenching.
fucking sad.
Yeah, yeah.
That game. I still think about that game.
Totally. Payne's
But like
Creek
this
killing.
one's like obviously
so
Payne's
sad.
Creek is horrible. Yeah, like there's so many games that we've played that I think hit in a way, but I don't know. I think because you spend so much time in Ethan's version of his own like escapism.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. This one just didn't gut punch me.
Yeah.
Like I think maybe they wanted to gut punch.
Yeah. I agree. I think that's probably what they were going for. And I think it was a little bit too complicated, and like you're really in your head trying to think of the rest of the game in the context of the explanation they give for
Sure.
you to focus
Yeah.
on the fact that a child dies.
Right. And also I think by the time you find out he did die, it's something you've theorized.
You've
By that
processed
point.
it. Yeah. I mean, they
Right.
keep
I think you've
trying
had
to
time
kill
to
him.
deal with it. Yeah. This kid's yeah, right. He's cheated death so many times at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it just didn't come as much of a shock. But I still think it's a really interesting story and was fun to piece it together and
Yeah.
figure it out. And there's some really fun puzzle solving
Yeah,
here.
totally.
Putting the murders together and in like correct order is really fun. I think the house layout puzzle is actually a really, really clever
So cool.
puzzle. I don't really think I've seen another puzzle like that in a video game where you have to navigate one building using the layout of another building.
Yeah.
It's a cool puzzle design, but boy, did it fuck with us.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah, it really got us.
Yeah.
But
As a game, very good. As a story,
Mhm.
mostly good.
Yeah, right. I think the game is probably closer to like a 4 out of 5 for me, but the story maybe a little bit a little bit lower than
Yeah,
that,
like a
3.5.
Yeah.
Certainly worth your time. It's very
so
short. You can play it really quickly. It's beautiful, like
It
we
is.
said. It looks nice.
Got the spooky atmosphere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's another kind of short one for us. But yeah, we'll catch you next time. Thanks for listening. We're going to be talking about the TV show Ludwig, which stars and I think was written or at least partially written by David Mitchell, if you know who that is. It's a British kind of like comedy, but very dry comedy.
Like the Brits are very good at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But a man who is like a puzzle setter. So he writes puzzle books.
What a dream.
But I know that's the whole time I was watching this show, that's all I was thinking about was like, I just want this job.
Yeah. Right. You would be good at it.
Yeah. He gets roped into solving some murders using his like puzzle solving skills, which is great.
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll catch you next time.
Thanks for listening.
Many thanks to Kindle for editing our pod and for our lovely theme songs. You can find his work at lounginglapin.com. Thank you to Cozy Snail Designs for our cozy cover art. You can support us on Patreon at patreon.com/senior detectives. We are also on TikTok at SNR Detectives Pod and on Instagram at Senior Detectives Pod. See you there.